have the crystals here anymore, the upright crystals, but they had them on parallel Earth. So that's where they programmed from. They programmed them in there, and the grids would still run. As long as they could get those top stones off Stonehenge, they would still run. So they used this technology. They wouldn't have had the power if they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. Because here's where the connection is between the CDD plates, the signet shields that go with them, and the rod and the staff. A human being that has a Magi coating that can run enough frequency of the Maharata current and the rainbow ray can hold the CDD plate in their hand and activate it. An Anunnaki can't. They can't pull in enough of that frequency from the rainbow ray. You need rainbow ray frequency, and they cannot pull it in because they don't have the D12 current of the Maharata running. But they can stimulate it with tools that are able to carry it. The staff has the ability to pull in the Kundalini, portions of the Kundalini, enough to activate the plates. So they can activate the CDD plate with the staff, use that to activate the shield, use that to activate the Stargate activation site to activate Stargates. So this is why the combination of why everybody's hunting down this rod and staff thing. This is the purpose of it, was so they could get those 4 items together, which was no easy feat because you had Guardians stealing them back whenever they get stolen. Everybody's running around trying to catch them and get them all in the same place at the same time. And all of this is going to come to a head in the next stellar activation cycle. But in the meantime, and this was all planned for the next, like when the stellar activation cycle came, everybody wanted to get the 4 objects together because if they could progressively decimate all the other races. They could create pole shift early, get rid of them, and then by the time the stellar activation rolled around, they'd have enough control of the grids because they had the objects that they could get the core resonance up to anchor the stellar bridge any way they wanted. So they wanted to clear the real estate before the fact if possible. Because the Guardians races continually countered them, and they'd steal back. If they stole the Ark, they'd steal it back, or running around all over Egypt and all over. We're going to have this, the trace on the Ark, where it moved when, in the book coming out. It's really funny when you look at it. When you look at this from a higher level, just what a bunch of bozos down here. Look at this. It's like one of those movies, like the Three Stooges movies, you know, whack, boink, boink, yeah, one of those. But it's unfortunately the history we have been living. This is what we are taught about the Bible. We are taught about these stories in our history. We're taught to take them seriously, as if God did this. You know, God didn't do most of this. This was a combination of humans who kind of got confused with a bunch of Anunnaki and Draconians and created a real mess and blamed it on God. That's what happened. There is a God, and we all are from a central creative force that is an intelligence and an identity. It is God. But it isn't the God that's called Jehovah or anybody else. God doesn't need to have a single label name. The single label names for God were coming from the various fallen angelics that tried to set themselves up in replace of the true interconnection of God. It tried to convince pieces of God that are walking around here that are us that we were something different, taught us that God was out here someplace, and called it a name. If we have the guts to really look at what was done here, it won't seem so offensive. Some people, God bless the people who are really into being like Jehovah's Witness or something very, very seriously, taking the Bible as the only word of God ever, 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 and everything else is evil. And if they come to your door and you let them in and you listen to them, as I have often, because I love all people, if you refuse to convert by the end of that conversation, they will tell you you're damned and you're evil. Okay? And at that point I said, you can leave now. You're in my house. I was nice enough to let you in. You don't have to call me names, you know. But these people are very serious about their beliefs. And I respect that. I respect the verve of loving God enough to want to actually defend it that much. What would absolutely be devastating to a person who's really attached to having your God have a specific name to it is if they find out it's not who they thought it was. Right now, they're worshiping Anunnaki, fallen angelics. Try to convince people that are absolutely certain that's the way it is. You won't. So I don't try to. What I like about the people here is you're open-minded. You want to know. All right, what is it? Whatever it is, just let me know. Give me an idea of what it is. That's fine, and I'll think about that. There's no heavy attachment to it having to be any one way. And that's how you'll learn. That's how you'll be able to find your comfort zone in it. But anyway, what happened in the Babylon massacre was basically they crashed the grids. They held the distortions in the grids using the Nibirian dotted crystal grid. They've been programming them through ever since. This has affected our DNA template in numerous ways. It has created numerous manifestations. We talked about some of these yesterday, with blocking the Kundalini flow because it's blocking the strands that would allow the seals to release. That has atrophied certain parts of the brain. It has atrophied the pineal gland. It has made the chemical systems and hormone systems work very different, which makes the body die very young compared to what it was normally supposed to. It has blocked the psychic senses. This is a way you could literally take a race with a genetic potential and take half of that genetic potential away from it. But the thing is, we can bioregenerate that. It's not that it's gone. It was just broken up in little pieces. The templates were fragmented. That's where our scientists see the junk DNA stuff. That's part of what happened after the Babylon massacre. At that point, because the templates were destroyed, language is a function of fire letter arrangement. It's the audible, outside expression, truly, of what is contained, the information and consciousness contained within the fire letters of the DNA template. When they scrambled the DNA templates, they scrambled our language patterns. And they did it in a way that held specific scramble frequencies running through the grids at different angles, which meant if they're running it from the Nibirian dotted crystal grid, if that's what's holding that program, they had ley lines that they were coding with different sets of scramble patterns, which means this person's scramble would be different than this one's. This race group over in this area would have a different distortion than this one, and this one would be different than this one. This is how the language patterns, where we don't even know how to talk to each other, evolved. They not only gave us a mass scramble pattern, they gave us a mass scramble pattern that had a bunch of smaller scramble patterns in it. So it would take a very long time before we could ever figure out who the heck we were, because with this, it wiped out most of the memory. Anything held in strands 4 and higher was completely cut off because you couldn't activate strand 4 or higher. Anything that was held in strand 2 or 1, part of that got knocked out of the loop. They left strand 1 and 2, the emotional body and the physical body connection, only enough that it would sustain the physical form. So we have a subconscious mind. All right, all of this stuff has turned us into what we are today. All right, this is why we don't remember the ancient history. This is why we don't even remember how we got into a body this time. Fetal integration was supposed to be a conscious process. I experienced it conscious because I had assistance with the gene code in the fetal body. We started out with an indigo imprint with a 6th strand awake, and we almost didn't make fetal integration. And because of that, they had to open the 4th heart chakra. To do that in a baby body, in an infant fetal body, you have to activate the 4th strand. So I came in with 4 and 6 activated, where a normal indigo would normally come in with 6, but not 4. They'd have to progress to it. I remembered the process. I remembered who I was before. I had this scramble of memory pictures. It's like a Kodak album that somebody dumped all over the floor. You know, what time period were these from? You can see them clear, and you knew you were there, but it took a long time to learn to sequence them. The fetal integration was supposed to be conscious. All of these things. Psychic perception. That was natural. We had these things to some degree until this time frame. In this time frame of 3470 BC, the Babylon massacre, there was also an intention set that had to do with the year 2000 to 2017. There were certain individuals chosen that and each group did it. You had basically 3 agendas. Draconian agenda running. You had the Jehovian anti-Draconian, anti-other Anunnaki group running from Sirius A, Dolphin people, and you had the Luciferian Covenant, kind of unified Anunnaki Luciferian agenda. Now, the Luciferians decided, they started this, then the others picked up on, hey, that works, that we'll do that. They selected a couple of groups of humans, because everybody got affected. All their Melchizedek races, too, ended up scrambled to some degree and had no memory. So it was re-education time. They would create groups of chosen ones. They would pick certain ones that had the correct fire letters. They had the lineage of the fire letters they wanted, you know, the concentrations of the ones they were looking for to run the grids. And they would implant them. They would give them sometimes physical implants, but usually it was frequency implants in the 4th strand that would manifest in the astral body, that would allow certain parts of the 4th strand to turn on a little, but coded only to their matrix, where they would start to get psychic perception. They could start to hear their gods speak. This was done with the objective of knowing when it came time for the stellar activation cycle, they would activate those people. They would start saying hi again. And they would get them to run the grid work. This is what the New Age movement is doing. It was started back here in this period as a very good idea to advance the Luciferian covenant. It was started after theirs with the implants that were put in the astral fields. Now some people, if you happen to be a Magi line or an Indigo line, you can get your psychic perceptions turned on. There are other angelic human gene codes that can do that. The psychic ability is a normal ability for anybody to have. What was not normal was taking that and distorting it with a pattern that tuned it into Nibiru or into Sirius A, where you couldn't hear anything else. It was like interfacing a telephone call. You're calling home, but you're not getting home. You're getting the office over here that happens to be an office that's trying to mess with you. This is what they did with the circuitry. This is a lot of the people in the New Age movement are being affected by this. They have implants they don't even know they have. They're karmic. They came through on their gene code. This was all part of the plan. Now, I'm not. If I go through it at this rate, every one of these, it's going to be tomorrow morning. Okay. Now, I'm going to touch on the important ones because I do want you to see. I found it. Sadly, I found it amusing when I started to see the whole Noah, Abraham, Moses story. So I'm going to get you through that. Because I just kind of went, oh, brother. Because I like these people too. They were the stories from the Bible that were told as children. We love these people.